It started with something as stupid and harmless as a scraped hand. I'd been helping out at my stepsister's boyfriend's repair shop, a cramped, grease-smelling space lined with half-fixed engines and tools that all looked the same after a while. I was there to earn a bit of money and maybe some respect, but mostly I was there because I didn't have much else going on. The day she walked in, the shop felt different. Her name was Mira, his girlfriend. Mid-40s, maybe older, but not in the way people say older when they mean less. She had that kind of composure that made everything around her seem messy by comparison. A white shirt tucked neatly into dark jeans, a thin gold chain that caught light when she moved. She looked like she belonged anywhere but here, in this dusty box of clanging wrenches and burnt oil. I was tightening a bolt when she said, quietly, "You're bleeding." I hadn't noticed. My knuckle had split open, a red bead forming where the wrench had slipped. She crossed the room before I could even mumble that I was fine. "Sit," she said. Not a request. More like someone used to being obeyed. She rummaged through her bag and came back with a small bottle of sanitizer and a tissue. I wanted to say she didn't have to, that it was nothing, but I didn't. Maybe because her tone made me feel like arguing would ruin something fragile. The sting of alcohol hit, and I winced. "Sorry," she murmured. "Didn't mean to. It's okay." Her fingers were careful, but steady. A strange kind of warmth crept up my arm, not from the touch itself, but from the silence that followed it. The kind that fills up a room until even the ticking of a wall clock feels too loud. Her boyfriend, my stepsister's boyfriend, was in the back, arguing with a supplier over the phone. Mira kept her focus on my hand, pretending that was the only thing in the world that mattered right then. And maybe, for a few seconds, it was. When she finished, she pressed the tissue into my palm, closing my fingers around it. Her hand lingered, just long enough to register as something more than polite, not long enough to accuse. Her eyes lifted. There was a faint crease between her brows, like she'd realized she'd broken some unspoken rule. "You should be more careful," she said, softer now. "I usually am," I lied. A faint smile tugged at her lips. Not mockery, not sympathy, just awareness. Then the sound of a door slamming from the back made her step away. Her boyfriend appeared, frustrated, wiping sweat from his neck. Myra's posture changed immediately, shoulders back, chin higher, like someone slipping back into a role they'd almost forgotten they were playing. She glanced at me once before leaving. A small nod, maybe even a thank you, though I hadn't done anything. The scent of her perfume, something faintly floral, clean, stayed in the air long after the door closed behind her. I went back to tightening bolts, pretending to work. But the wrench felt heavier than before, and my hand, the one she'd held, wouldn't stop tingling. That night, when I washed the grease off my arms, I found the same tissue folded neatly in my pocket. I don't even remember putting it there. I should have thrown it away. I didn't. And I don't know why, but since then, every time the doorbell above the shop rings, I keep expecting her to walk in again. Maybe because for those few seconds, when her hand closed around mine, it felt like something started. Something that shouldn't have. Something I can't seem to let go of. The next time I saw Mira, it was raining. Not the kind of cinematic downpour that drowns everything. Just the slow, steady kind that seeps into your clothes and quiets the world. I was closing up the shop early when she pulled up in her car, wipers fighting the drizzle. "Is he here?" she asked, leaning out the window. Her voice sounded tired, not sleepy tired, but the kind that settles in your bones. "He left an hour ago," I said. "Said he had errands." "Oh." She looked past me, at the half-lit shop, then back. "Can you help me carry something from the trunk?" I nodded before she even finished. She opened the trunk, a box of car parts, heavier than it looked. I took most of the weight, and she followed me in, shutting the door behind her to keep the rain out. The sound of it drumming on the metal roof filled the silence between us. She glanced around the space like she hadn't really seen it before, the hanging tools, the faint smell of oil and coffee. "You really work here all day?" "Most days," I said. "Keeps me out of trouble." That made her smile, but faintly. "You sound like you've been told that before." Probably because I have. The conversation should have ended there, but it didn't. She lingered near the counter, fingers tracing the rim of a coffee mug someone had left behind. Her nails were clean, neat, like everything about her, but her hand trembled, just slightly, when she set the mug down. "You okay?" I asked before I could stop myself. She blinked, like I'd pulled her from somewhere far away. I'm fine. Just long week. Work? Her eyes dropped. Life? It wasn't the kind of answer meant to be followed up, but I didn't move away either. I stood there, trying to look busy, pretending to rearrange tools. Does he? I started, then stopped. Never mind. Her lips curved, not quite a smile this time. You were going to ask if he treats me well. I froze. No, it's fine. She looked down again, brushing a strand of wet hair behind her ear. He does. Most of the time. There was a weight in the way she said it. Not accusation, not sadness, just tired truth. Something about it made my chest tighten in a way I couldn't explain. A gust of wind rattled the windows, and she stepped closer instinctively, as if for warmth, though it wasn't that cold. We stood there, two people surrounded by noise, saying nothing. Her perfume was softer this time, mixed with the smell of rain. When she reached for her car keys on the counter, her hand brushed mine, barely a touch, like the ghost of one. She didn't pull away right away. Then she cleared her throat, whispered, "Thanks for helping," and walked out before I could say anything else. The door closed behind her, and the room felt wrong again. Too big, too quiet. I told myself it was nothing. Just politeness. Just timing. But when I locked up, my palm still remembered the warmth that wasn't supposed to be there. And I realized she never once asked about my hand. Maybe because she remembered it too. It was a Thursday night, the kind that feels like it shouldn't exist, too late to still be at work, too early to call it tomorrow. The rain from earlier in the week hadn't left for good. It came back in waves, soft and stubborn, tapping against the windows of the shop like someone asking to be let in. I was staying late, trying to fix a carburetor I didn't really care about, when I heard the sound of tires crunching wet gravel. Her car again. Mira stepped inside before I could even wipe my hands clean. She wasn't dressed like last time. No white shirt, no careful polish. Just a gray sweater that looked borrowed from someone else and hair slightly out of place, damp at the edges. Sorry, she said quickly, closing the door behind her. He's out with friends. I just needed to pick something up he left here. I nodded. Sure. What is it? She hesitated, scanning the cluttered counter, like she wasn't really sure herself. I think it was his jacket. There was no jacket. I knew that, and I think she did too. She walked past me anyway, eyes roaming the room as though pretending to search was easier than explaining why she'd really come. Her sleeve brushed mine once. Light, accidental, but my body reacted like it was something deliberate. You ever notice, she said quietly, how some places feel safer when they shouldn't? I didn't know how to answer that, so I didn't. She turned, leaning against the counter, looking at me in that unreadable way again, like she wanted to say something honest but didn't trust herself to finish it. I shouldn't be here this late, she said. I won't tell, I murmured before I could think. That got me a small laugh, the kind that isn't really a laugh, more like an exhale that gave up halfway through. You really shouldn't say things like that. Why not? Her eyes flicked to mine, and something in them softened, or broke. Because it makes me forget how young you are. That shut me up. Completely. The air felt heavier then. The rain outside seemed louder, the fluorescent light above us buzzed like it wanted to disappear. I'm not that young, I said, quieter than I meant to. She looked down, her fingers tightening around the hem of her sleeve. You don't know what you're saying. Maybe I didn't. Or maybe I knew too well. The silence stretched again, long enough for the moment to shift into something that shouldn't have existed. Too still, too close. She was standing just an arm's length away, her breath barely touching the air between us. Then her phone buzzed on the counter. The sound cut through everything. She flinched, grabbed it too fast. The screen lit up with his name. She silenced it without answering, the glow reflecting against her face for a second before vanishing. I should go, she said. But her voice trembled this time, like her body hadn't fully agreed. I stepped aside, giving her room. She reached for the door, then paused, one hand still on the handle. Do me a favor, she said, not turning around. Forget tonight. And then she was gone, swallowed by rain and headlights, leaving me staring at the door, my pulse still racing from something that hadn't even happened. I wanted to forget. I really did. But the harder I tried, the louder that buzzing phone echoed in my head. Days passed before I saw her again. Not that I wasn't thinking about her. I was, constantly, but she didn't show up, and I tried not to wonder why. Then one evening, she did. No rain this time. Just a gray sky fading into night. She came when the shop was nearly closed, standing by the doorway like she wasn't sure if she was allowed in. There was no reason for her to be there. No missing jacket, no forgotten parts. Just her. "You're late," I said, pretending I was joking. She smiled weakly. "You always say that like you're waiting for me." I didn't deny it. The light above us flickered, humming low. She looked tired again, the kind of tired that makeup can't cover, the kind that comes from pretending too long. I wiped my hands, motioned toward the stool near the counter. "You can sit. I won't charge you for it." She laughed, but it sounded fragile. "I'm not staying long." She sat anyway. For a while, neither of us said anything. I could hear the hum of the fridge, the faint ticking of the clock. My heart was beating too loud for such a quiet room. Then she spoke, softly, like she didn't want the words to exist once they left her mouth. "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" The question caught me off guard. "Sometimes," I said. "Usually when I'm doing everything I'm supposed to." Her eyes met mine. "Yeah, that's exactly it." She looked down, twisting her ring. Not a wedding one, just something gold and simple. Her voice broke slightly when she said, "I keep thinking about that night. The one I told you to forget." "So do I," I admitted before I could stop myself. That made her inhale sharply, not a gasp, but close. Her fingers froze mid-motion. "You shouldn't have said that. You brought it up." "That's different." "Is it?" She finally looked up, and the space between us felt impossibly small. "You don't understand," she said. "You're supposed to be." She stopped, her throat tightening on the next word. "You're supposed to be safe." The word hit harder than I expected. Safe. Like I was a place she wanted to stay but couldn't. I stepped closer, slow, unsure. "I didn't mean for this to be, I know." Her voice cracked again. "But it is." The silence that followed was unbearable. It wasn't the quiet of avoidance anymore. It was the quiet that happens when everything's already been said, even if no one said it. She stood, brushing her palms on her jeans like she needed to ground herself. "We should stop seeing each other here. Do you want to?" She hesitated, long enough for me to know the answer before she spoke. "I need to," she whispered. "That's not the same thing." Her eyes glistened when she turned toward the door. For a second, I thought she might say something else, maybe ask me to make it easier, to disagree, to save her from herself. But all she said, barely audible, was, "You make it too easy to forget who I'm supposed to be." And then she left. I didn't follow. I just stood there, surrounded by all the things I never said, listening to the echo of her voice, the softest kind of devastation. I didn't expect to see her again. Weeks had passed, the kind of time that doesn't heal anything, just blurs the edges so you can pretend it hurts less. I worked longer hours, talked less, laughed when I had to. My stepsister still dropped by with him sometimes, but Mira didn't. Not once. Then one afternoon, she called. Her voice was quiet, almost cautious. "Can you stop by the house? I found something that belongs to you." I didn't remember leaving anything there, but I said yes. When I got there, the house felt wrong. Too still. The curtains were half closed, the TV on mute. She met me at the door, holding a small cardboard box, my name scrawled on the top in black marker. "I think it's yours," she said. It wasn't. Inside were old photographs, none of me. A younger Mira, smiling beside a man I didn't recognize, and a boy, maybe 8 or 9, with the same sharp eyes she had. "I shouldn't have called you," she said quickly, reaching for the box again. "It's not yours. I didn't know what else to do." I didn't hand it back. "Who's the boy?" Her expression tightened, and for a long time, she didn't answer. Then, softly, "My son." I blinked. "I didn't know you had a kid." "I don't. Not anymore." The words landed like a punch, not because of how she said them, but because of how quietly she did. No tears, no shaking, just calm exhaustion, like she'd said it too many times in her head already. She walked past me, sat on the edge of the couch. Her hands rested in her lap, motionless. He was 13. Car accident. His father was driving. I didn't know what to say. Every word that came to mind felt wrong, small. "I keep the pictures because if I don't," she continued, "I start forgetting the sound of his voice. And if I remember too much, I can't breathe." She looked up then, not at me, but through me. "You look a little like him, you know." The air shifted. Something I'd been misunderstanding for weeks suddenly fell into place. The strange tenderness in her eyes, the restraint, the guilt that didn't belong to me. "Mira," I started, but she shook her head. I know, she whispered. That's why I can't. Her voice cracked, the first real break I'd heard in her. I moved closer, not touching her, just sitting near enough that she could if she wanted. But she didn't. She just stared at her hands, then at the photo of the boy, her thumb brushing the edge like it might fall apart. Sometimes I think I only talk to you, she said finally, because you don't ask for anything. You just listen. I don't think that's all it is, I said quietly. She turned to me, eyes glassy but steady. Maybe not, but it's the only part I'm allowed to keep. We sat in silence after that, not uncomfortable, but heavy with everything neither of us could fix. When I finally stood to leave, she handed me one of the photos. Not the boy, just a blurred image of the three of them, caught mid-laughter. Take it, she said. Sometimes it helps to share the remembering. I didn't understand what she meant until later that night, when I caught myself staring at the photo longer than I should have, realizing that maybe, for her, remembering wasn't the hardest part. It was feeling something again that was. And somehow, I had become the accident she hadn't seen coming. She came to the shop again, not by accident this time. It was late, after closing. The sky outside looked bruised, streaked in dull violet and fading blue. I was sweeping the floor when the door creaked open, and there she was, wearing that same gray sweater, the one that seemed to hold its own memories now. I didn't think you'd still be here, she said. I wasn't sure you'd come. For a moment, neither of us moved. The hum of the overhead light filled the silence between us, that soft electric buzz that always seemed louder around her. She walked in, slow, like the space itself might break if she stepped too hard. I keep replaying that day, she said. The photos. What I said. You don't have to explain. I know, but I want to. She stopped near the workbench, tracing her finger along the surface, leaving faint trails through the dust. You remind me of him. Yes, she said. But it's not just that. You remind me what it felt like to be alive before everything stopped meaning anything. The words sank between us, too honest to ignore. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Every instinct told me to move closer, but something deeper, quieter, told me to just stay. So I did. Her eyes glimmered under the dull light. I've been so careful for so long, she whispered. With everyone. With myself. And then you show up, and suddenly, I don't know who I am when you look at me. She wasn't crying, but her voice trembled at the edges, that sound of someone trying to stay in control and failing gracefully. I stepped forward until we were standing close enough to share breath, but not warmth. You don't have to be anyone, I said. Not right now. That broke something in the air. She closed her eyes, and for a moment, it felt like the world tilted, small, imperceptible, but enough to make everything else fade. I didn't touch her at first, just stood there, letting the quiet settle, feeling the gravity of what wasn't said. Then she reached out, hesitant, searching, and her fingers brushed my wrist. A simple touch, but it undid me completely. We didn't kiss. We didn't need to. Her hand found mine the same way it had that first day, but this time it wasn't an accident. It wasn't a slip of kindness. It was a choice, a silent acknowledgement of everything we couldn't undo. The world outside went still. No rain, no wind, just that quiet, suspended moment when you realize you've already crossed the line, and there's no going back. She leaned her forehead against mine, her voice barely a breath. This can't be anything, she said. I know. And yet, yeah, we stayed like that, breathing the same small air, holding on to something that wasn't supposed to exist, but somehow felt truer than anything else we'd known. When she finally stepped back, she didn't look away. I don't know what happens now, she said. Maybe nothing, I whispered. Maybe that's enough. She nodded, slow, steady, and slipped her hand from mine, leaving behind that ghost of warmth that never really fades. Then she walked out into the night, the soft chime of the door the only proof she'd ever been there. I didn't chase her this time. I just stood where she'd been, the air still carrying her quiet. It wasn't love, not the kind you can name, anyway. It was something smaller, sadder, and more real. And it was enough to undo me. It's strange, the things that stay with you. It's been months since that night. The shop feels emptier now, cleaner, quieter. I still come in early, still stay too late. The same wrench on the counter, the same faded smell of oil and rain. But somehow, nothing feels the same. Mira doesn't come by anymore. My stepsister says they ended things. No drama, just distance. She said she needed time. She told me, like that explained everything. Maybe it did. Sometimes I still expect to hear the bell above the door, that small metallic sound that once made my chest tighten. It never rings. But the silence that replaced it doesn't hurt the way it used to. It's gentler now, the kind that reminds you something real once passed through your life. I saw her once, by accident, at a cafe uptown. She was with a friend, laughing, genuinely laughing, not that half-smile she used to wear when she was trying to seem fine. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and decided not to look. Either way, I didn't go up to her. I didn't need to. Because for the first time, I realized that what we had, whatever it was, didn't need to be finished to be complete. Back then, I thought connection meant possession. That if someone made you feel seen, you had to hold on to them. But now I think it's something quieter, a moment that lives between two people long enough to remind them they're still capable of feeling. Mira taught me that love doesn't always look like beginning something. Sometimes, it's learning how to end it right. And maybe that's why I don't regret it. Any of it. When I think of her now, it's not the ache that comes back, it's the small things. The way she said my name like a secret, the faint scent of rain when she left, the warmth of her hand closing around mine that first day. Tiny things, but they built a whole story. I still keep that photo she gave me. It's tucked inside a drawer, not framed, not displayed, just there. Some nights, I take it out, not to remember her pain, but to remember the courage it took for her to let someone close again. And maybe, in some quiet corner of her life, she remembers me too, not as a mistake, but as a moment that reminded her she could still feel something after loss. That's the part no one talks about. How love doesn't always need a future to matter. Sometimes, it just needs to change you. So if you've ever met someone who shifted the way you see the world, even for a moment, don't spend your life trying to forget them. Just carry them gently, like a soft bruise that reminds you where you were once touched by something real. Because maybe that's all love ever really is, the echo that stays after the noise fades. Pause, tell me, have you ever had someone you were never really allowed to love, but still can't quite let go of?